Admiral Jerome Washington stood at the massive glass window of the space station, looking out at the beautiful colors dancing in the distant nebula. For 20 long years, humans had worked alongside alien species in peace. Today was supposed to be just another meeting about trade deals and letting humans build more colonies on distant worlds. The big meeting room buzzed with strange alien sounds as creatures from 12 different worlds took their seats. Commander Latosha Brooks, the human diplomat, quietly spoke into her communication device while checking her notes for the day's topics. "Those lizard-like aliens look upset about something," she whispered to Admiral Washington. "This doesn't feel like a normal meeting." Everything started fine, just like always. Then High Chancellor Vextar, the leader of the reptile people, turned on the big holographic display in the center of the room. Instead of showing peaceful trade routes between worlds, the screen filled with pictures of what looked like human military bases and dangerous weapons. "My fellow council members," Vextar said, his scaly face showing what humans had learned was their way of smiling, but it wasn't friendly. "We have learned the real truth about our newest friends." The proof they showed was completely fake, but it looked very real. The aliens had created false images of human attack fleets and terrible weapons. They made it look like humans were planning to invade and conquer the galaxy. Admiral Washington stood up quickly to argue against these lies, but Chancellor Mordun from the Crystal People hit a special bell that meant everyone had to be quiet. "We will vote now," Mordun announced in a voice that sounded like singing crystals. "Humans must be locked inside their home solar system to keep the galaxy safe." The vote happened so fast that Washington barely had time to think. One by one, each alien species raised their hand or tentacle or whatever they used to vote. All 12 species voted yes. Not a single one voted to help humanity. As soon as the vote finished, a powerful energy barrier sprang up around Earth's entire solar system. Washington watched in horror as all communication with human colonies outside the solar system suddenly went dead. The screens that usually showed messages from distant human settlements went black one by one. "Admiral," Commander Brooks said, her voice shaking, "they've trapped us inside like animals in a cage." 3 million humans living on colonies beyond Earth's solar system were now completely cut off from home. They were alone among alien species that had just declared humanity too dangerous to be free. These colonists had no idea what was happening. They were farmers, scientists, teachers, and families who had traveled to distant worlds looking for new opportunities. Now they were prisoners. Washington felt his heart sink as he realized the full scale of what had just happened. 20 years of friendship, cooperation, and shared dreams had been destroyed in less than an hour. The aliens had been planning this betrayal for who knows how long. They had created fake evidence, coordinated their vote, and prepared the containment system in advance. "Sir, what do we do now?" Brooks asked, looking at the dark communication screens. The Admiral clenched his fists as he stared out at the stars that were now forbidden to humanity. Somewhere out there, human children were asking their parents why they couldn't talk to Grandma and Grandpa on Earth anymore. Human scientists were wondering why their research data wasn't reaching home. Human explorers were discovering that they were now considered enemies of the galaxy they had hoped to call home. "We survive," Washington said quietly. "And we figure out how to save our people out there." The station's emergency alarms began to sound as Earth's military command tried to understand what had happened. Ships that had been traveling between Earth and the colonies found themselves bouncing off an invisible wall of energy. The barrier was complete and perfect, sealing humanity inside their birth system like a tomb. Outside the barrier, the alien council's ships began moving toward human colonies. The betrayal was just the beginning. Now came the real punishment for being human in a galaxy that feared what they might become. Washington knew that this wasn't the end of humanity's story among the stars. It was just the beginning of a new chapter, one that would be written in the darkness of betrayal and the burning light of human determination to never give up. 6 long months had passed since the aliens locked humanity inside their own solar system, and everything had changed. The once bright future among the stars now felt like a distant dream. Captain Tony Rodriguez carefully steered his small cargo ship between the floating rocks of the asteroid belt, carrying medicine and food to secret hideouts scattered throughout the solar system. The government channels that once connected Earth to its colonies were completely blocked. But humans had always been good at finding other ways to get things done. Underground networks sprang up like weeds after rain. Hidden bases were built inside hollowed-out asteroids. Secret communication systems used old mining equipment to send messages. "Hidden base, this is Medicine Run 5, Rodriguez spoke quietly into his radio. "Got your supplies here. Any news from our people outside the wall?" Major Kenya Jackson was the intelligence officer trying to keep track of what was happening to humans beyond the energy barrier. She had spent months building relationships with alien species who felt bad about what the council had done. Her voice came through the speaker, tired but determined. "It's getting worse, Tony. Those reptile aliens are forcing our people on Colony 7 to work in their mines. They're telling everyone it's for protection, but we know better." The secret base hidden inside asteroid B447 was always busy now. Men and women worked around the clock, trying to figure out how to help their trapped friends and family. Admiral Jerome Washington studied reports that came from the strangest places. Some aliens felt guilty about the betrayal and were secretly helping humanity. "Sir, you need to see this." Major Jackson handed Washington a small data device. "The robot aliens sent us this information. They're giving us the positions of council ships, their supply routes, even the secret codes they use to talk to each other." Washington looked at the information with amazement. The Machine Collective, as they called themselves, were artificial beings who thought the council had made a terrible mistake. They believed humans deserved better treatment and were risking their own safety to help. Dr. Denise Carter, a scientist who had spent 15 years learning about different alien species, looked up from her computer workstation. She had been studying intercepted alien communications for weeks, trying to understand their plans. "Admiral, there's something important I need to tell you," she said, adjusting her glasses. "The bug-like aliens have been lying to the council about how strong we really are. They know humans are much more capable than the other species think." The Insect Confederation had been secretly studying human technology and military capabilities for years. Unlike the other alien species, they understood that humans were incredibly dangerous when pushed into a corner. They had been feeding false information to the council, making human strength seem smaller than it really was. Washington felt a cold anger building in his chest. The aliens hadn't just betrayed humanity out of fear. Some of them had been planning this for a long time, studying human weaknesses and strengths like scientists studying lab animals. Reports kept coming in from the 3 alien species who were helping humans. The news was always bad. Human families on distant colonies were being separated. Children were being taken from their parents and put in alien schools where they were taught to be ashamed of being human. Adult humans were forced to work in dangerous jobs with little food or rest. The worst part was the propaganda. The Alien Council was spreading lies throughout the galaxy, telling everyone that humans were violent monsters who would destroy peaceful civilizations. They showed fake videos of human atrocities and made up stories about human plans to conquer the galaxy. "Our people out there don't even know we're trying to help them," Major Jackson said sadly. "The aliens have blocked all communication. They think Earth has abandoned them." But inside the secret base, hope was growing alongside the anger. Human engineers were working on projects that the aliens couldn't imagine. Scientists were developing new technologies based on theories the Galactic Council had never encountered. Military officers were planning operations that would shock the galaxy. "Those aliens made one big mistake," Washington said, looking at his officers. "They thought they could break human spirit by separating us and making us feel helpless. But they don't understand us at all." He pointed to the busy workers around the base, humans who had given up comfortable lives on Earth to fight for their people among the stars. "Every human out there suffering under alien rule is making us stronger. Every lie they tell about us is making us more determined. They wanted to contain us, but they've actually created something much more dangerous than they can imagine." The time for hiding and gathering information was almost over. Soon, the aliens would learn what humans could really do when their families were threatened and their freedom was stolen. Far out in the cold darkness between star systems, where no alien patrol ships ever traveled, something incredible was taking shape. Construction crews worked day and night in the freezing void of space, building humanity's greatest secret. Chief Engineer Tyrone Mitchell watched over the assembly of what would become known as the Ghost Fleet. These weren't ordinary spaceships. 50 years ago, long before humans ever met aliens, Earth's smartest scientists and engineers had started designing these vessels. They were meant to be insurance, just in case the first aliens humanity met turned out to be hostile. The project was so secret that only a handful of people knew it existed. "Admiral, how much longer before the big ship is ready to fly?" Admiral Jerome Washington asked through the secret communication channel that connected him to the construction site. 3 more days, Mitchell answered, his voice bouncing off the walls of the huge construction bay. "The special power systems are working perfectly, and the experimental drives just passed all their tests." The ships being built were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. They used scientific principles that alien civilizations had never discovered. While the aliens had spent thousands of years perfecting energy shields and plasma weapons, humans had been quietly developing something completely different. Lieutenant Colonel Jasmine Williams commanded the fleet's special operations teams. 4 months, her soldiers had been secretly getting close to alien military bases, gathering information and placing hidden cameras and listening devices. They moved like shadows through alien space stations, learning everything about enemy defenses. The reptile aliens have their main fleet parked at their home world, she reported during the secret planning meeting. 12 huge battleships, 40 smaller warships, and over 200 support ships. They're so confident that they don't even have proper guards posted. The reptilian species had ruled their part of the galaxy for so long that they couldn't imagine anyone challenging them. Their ships were massive and powerful, designed to intimidate other species into submission. But they had never faced human ingenuity. Commander Keisha Brooks, who now served as Washington's main strategic advisor, activated the holographic displays that showed all the alien strongholds throughout the galaxy. The Machine Collective had provided detailed information about every defensive system the Council used. "Look at this," she said, pointing to the three-dimensional images floating in the air. "Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons and physical projectiles. But they've never encountered anything like what we're building." The alien defensive systems were thousands of years old, based on technologies that had worked against every threat the galaxy had known. Energy barriers that could stop laser weapons. Force fields that could deflect missiles and bombs. Sensor networks that could detect any approaching ship from light years away. Captain Damon Foster, the fleet's lead pilot, studied the specifications of the new human ships with wonder and excitement. These vessels could do things that seemed impossible, even to him. "Sir, these ships can pass right through their energy shields like the shields don't even exist," he said with amazement. "And when they shoot at us, their weapons will go right through our ships without doing any damage." The secret was in the quantum technology that human scientists had developed. The ships could shift between different dimensions of reality, becoming ghost-like when they needed to avoid enemy fire. They could appear solid when attacking, then fade away when the aliens tried to fight back. Dr. Patricia Coleman, the lead scientist on the project, explained how the weapons worked. Instead of using energy beams or missiles like alien weapons, the human ships carried devices that could manipulate the very fabric of space and time. They could create miniature black holes, bend gravity into weapons, and even freeze time in small areas. "The aliens think they know everything about warfare," she said during a technical briefing. "But they're about to learn that humans see the universe very differently than they do." Admiral Washington stood before his assembled officers, looking at the faces of men and women who had volunteered for what might be a suicide mission. They all knew that if they failed, humanity would remain trapped forever. Their families and friends on distant colonies would live as slaves under alien rule. "The Alien Council made a big mistake when they decided to cage us," Washington said, his voice strong and determined. "They thought they were dealing with just another weak species that would accept their fate quietly." He gestured toward the construction bay where the Ghost Fleet was taking its final shape. Sleek, dark ships that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. Vessels that looked more like living creatures than machines. But they don't understand humans at all. When our families are threatened, when our freedom is taken away, when our children are forced to live as prisoners, we don't just get angry. We get creative. We find ways to do things that everyone else thinks are impossible. The final preparations were almost complete. Soon, the aliens would discover that trapping humanity had been the worst decision they had ever made. At exactly the same moment across the galaxy, something impossible happened. 12 different alien strongholds, separated by thousands of light years, suddenly found human warships appearing right in front of them. The Ghost Fleet had arrived, and the aliens were about to learn what real terror felt like. Admiral Jerome Washington commanded the attack from the bridge of humanity's most powerful warship, a massive vessel that the aliens had never imagined could exist. The ship was called Earth's Vengeance, and it was 3 times larger than anything in the alien fleets. "All ships ready for battle," Commander Keisha Brooks announced from her position at the communications console. "Our special drives are working perfectly, and all weapons are fully charged and ready to fire." Meanwhile, at the reptilian homeworld, High Chancellor Vextar was throwing a huge party to celebrate humanity's imprisonment. Alien dignitaries from across the galaxy had come to congratulate him on successfully caging the dangerous humans. The party was in full swing when every alarm on his flagship started screaming at once. "What's happening?" Vextar demanded, his scaled face showing panic for the first time in decades. On the main viewing screen, a human warship appeared as if it had materialized from thin air. The ship's hull seemed to shift and shimmer with strange energy patterns that hurt to look at. It was both there and not there at the same time, like a ghost made of metal and light. "This cannot be real," Vextar hissed through his sharp teeth. Our long-range sensors show absolutely nothing. How can a ship be right in front of us if our instruments detect empty space? Captain Tony Rodriguez, now commanding one of the Ghost Fleet destroyers, felt a cold satisfaction as he watched the alien fleet scramble to respond to his ship's sudden appearance. His vessel passed right through their defensive energy barriers like they were made of air. "This is for all those families you separated," Rodriguez whispered as he targeted the reptilian command ship. "This is for Colony 7 and every human child you made cry." The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever witnessed. It wasn't really a fight at all, but a demonstration of how completely outmatched the aliens were. The human ships moved like ghosts, appearing and disappearing at will. When alien weapons fired at them, the energy beams and missiles passed right through the human vessels without causing any damage. But when the humans fired back, their weapons were devastating beyond imagination. Instead of energy beams or explosive missiles, the human ships used weapons that manipulated the fundamental forces of the universe. They fired concentrated gravity that crushed alien ships like tin cans. They launched devices that froze time around enemy vessels, leaving them helpless and motionless. The reptilian fleet, which had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, was destroyed in less than 20 minutes. Their proud battleships, each one a mile long and bristling with weapons, were reduced to clouds of glowing debris. Most of the alien crews didn't even have time to send out distress calls before their ships were completely annihilated. At the Crystal Collective's main fortress, Chancellor Mordun watched in absolute horror as his beautiful crystalline warships began shattering like expensive glass sculptures. The humans were using weapons that created waves of pure gravitational force, and the delicate crystal ships couldn't withstand the assault. "How is this possible?" Mordun's voice rang like broken bells. "These humans were supposed to be primitive. They shouldn't have technology like this." Lieutenant Colonel Jasmine Williams, commanding a squadron of human fighters, felt grim satisfaction as she watched the crystal ships break apart. These were the same aliens who had voted to imprison human children and separate families. "You should have thought about that before you decided to cage us," she said quietly, targeting another crystal vessel. Across the galaxy, the same scene played out at every alien stronghold. The Machine Collective's robotic ships were torn apart by weapons that disrupted their electronic systems. The insect alien swarm tactics were useless against human ships that could phase in and out of reality. Every species that had voted to imprison humanity was facing complete destruction. Admiral Washington opened communication channels to every alien world simultaneously. His voice echoed through the council chambers, military bases, and government buildings across the galaxy. "This is Admiral Jerome Washington of the United Earth Federation." His voice was calm but carried the weight of absolute authority. "The energy barrier around our solar system will be shut down immediately. Every human colony will be freed. All human prisoners will be returned to their families unharmed." He paused, letting the aliens absorb what they were seeing on their screens. Where minutes before there had been mighty alien fleets, now there was only wreckage floating in space. "Any species that refuses these demands will be treated as enemies of humanity. You have seen what we can do to your most powerful fleets. Do not test our patience further." The response came faster than anyone expected. Within just a few hours, 6 of the alien species sent formal surrender messages. The remaining species began frantically destroying the containment barrier and releasing human prisoners. The galaxy would never be the same again. 3 weeks after the Ghost Fleet had shocked the galaxy into submission, everything had changed. The old Galactic Council that had ruled through fear and ancient traditions was completely gone. In its place stood something new, something that the galaxy had never seen before, a government based on equality rather than domination. Admiral Jerome Washington stood in the massive new Federation Assembly Hall, a beautiful building constructed in neutral space where no single species could claim ownership. Through the huge transparent walls, he could see representatives from 43 different alien species signing the most important document in galactic history, the Interstellar Equality Charter. The document was simple but revolutionary. Every species, no matter how old or technologically advanced, would have equal rights. No more ancient councils making decisions for younger civilizations. No more powerful species treating weaker ones like children or pets. Everyone would have a voice, and everyone would be respected. Major Kenya Jackson, who had been promoted to admiral for her excellent intelligence work during the crisis, walked up to Washington with a datapad full of reports from across the galaxy. "The reptilian species has agreed to pay back everything they stole from our colonies," she said with satisfaction. "They're also being confined to their home solar system for the next 25 years as punishment for running those horrible labor camps." Washington nodded approvingly. Justice was being served, but it wasn't cruel or excessive. The aliens were learning that actions have consequences, but they weren't being wiped out or tortured. What about the crystal aliens? Washington asked, remembering how Chancellor Mordun had struck that bell to silence human objections during the betrayal. Same punishment, Jackson replied. They are angry about being confined to their home system, but they are smart enough not to challenge us again. They've seen what our ghost fleet can do. Dr. Denise Carter, now serving as the Federation's head science officer, was busy coordinating amazing technology exchanges with species that had helped humanity during their darkest hour. The Machine Collective, those artificial beings who had risked everything to provide intelligence to the human resistance, were particularly excited about human innovations. The robot aliens are completely fascinated by our quantum technology, Dr. Carter explained to Washington. They want to understand how we can make our ships phase through solid matter. In exchange, they are offering to help us rebuild all the colonies that were damaged during the occupation. This was exactly the kind of cooperation that Washington had hoped for. Instead of conquest and domination, humanity was building genuine partnerships based on mutual respect and shared benefits. Captain Damon Foster, now commanding the Federation's patrol fleet, reported in from the area where the energy barrier had once imprisoned humanity. His voice came through the communication system with obvious pride and relief. All the containment barriers are completely destroyed, sir. Every human colony is free, and we've built permanent guardian stations throughout our territory to make sure nothing like this ever happens again. Washington felt a deep satisfaction hearing those words. The 3 million humans who had been trapped and enslaved were finally home with their families. Children were reunited with parents. Scientists could resume their research. Farmers could tend their crops without alien overseers forcing them to work. Through the observation deck's massive windows, Washington could see something beautiful happening. Human ships and alien vessels were working side by side to construct new trading stations and diplomatic facilities. Species that had been enemies just weeks ago were now cooperating on projects that would benefit everyone. The price of this new peace hadn't been conquest or revenge, even though humanity certainly had the power to destroy any species that opposed them. Instead, it had been demonstrating that humans would never again accept being treated as inferior or dangerous simply for being different. Commander Keisha Brooks joined Washington at the viewing area, looking out at the busy construction work happening in space around them. The old council ruled through fear and ancient traditions, she observed thoughtfully. What do we rule through? Washington smiled as he watched an Earth cargo ship arriving with medical supplies for alien refugees who had been displaced during the brief war. Humanity wasn't just protecting its own people, it was helping everyone who needed assistance. We don't rule at all, Keisha, he said quietly. We protect. We defend the right of every species to live freely and make their own choices. And sometimes, that's exactly what the galaxy needs. Far out in the darkness at the edge of known space, the Ghost Fleet continued its silent watch. These powerful warships served as a constant reminder that humanity's mercy and kindness were backed up by incredible strength. The galaxy had learned one of the most important lessons in the universe: never underestimate a species that has nothing left to lose, and never try to cage something that values freedom above life itself. The new order wasn't perfect, but it was fair. And for the first time in thousands of years, the galaxy was truly at peace.